Kira had some questions to ask me, but I will answer them. And she wanted to, one of the questions was about getting to First United Methodist Church. When I joined this church, I was very curious about a preacher who would have a milk mustache. And I told Dr. Walker, I said, I came to find out who, as a minister, would put himself in the newspaper with a milk mustache. That's where I want to be because he is not in the box. Because I'm not in the box, have never been in the box, and people who are not in the box have a lot of fun. And we're considered to be weirdos. Um, I was born in the state of Louisiana, but I was conceived in Houston, Texas. Mama went home to have the baby with her mother because my mother was the baby in the family. So at 6 weeks old, my mother went back to Houston and put me in the arms of my grandfather, who was 70 years old. Can you imagine what a spoiled little brat I was? I mean, I was very spoiled. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and so I grew up in the blacksmith shop. He had a junkyard. I rode his back until I was 6 years old. And the other girls in the family said to me one day, "You need to get off of Papa's back." I said, "That is not his back, that is my back." Then it struck me, my grandfather was 70, so I started counting. He is 76 years old, but he still carried me on his back. He didn't mind. Grew up in a neighborhood that was biracial. My grandfather's blacksmith shop was on Bastrop, and the 7-Up company was on Hutchinson Street around the corner. So I was known as the neighborhood rat. You know, rats go all over the place. That was Barbara. I knew Mr. Payne, who owned the 7-Up company. I went to visit him every morning. I was 3 years old, but nobody bothered me because everybody knew, oh, that's that little black kid. She just all over the neighborhood. I had a bad habit of visiting people impromptu, and everybody who really knows me know these two sit up here on the front of just cracking up. Impromptu visits, because that's the way my grandfather did things. He permitted, my job with him was to take the orders from the people who were coming into blacksmith shop. They either had wagon wheels to be fixed or they had horses to be shod. And this was for one of those big Clydesdale horses. This was for the little Shetland ponies. And this one was for the middle-sized horses. And see, everybody called that the bad finger, but that was not the bad finger in my grandfather's blacksmith shop. That's the size rod I had to tell him he needed to make the horseshoe. And sometimes he would let me use the rasp on the horseshoe. He'd have the horse's foot, and he'd let me do the horses and nail. I learned how to learn how to make horseshoes and shoe horses. We did not know that we didn't have a lot of money because we always had plenty of food. You know, when you have food, you're satisfied, so you don't worry about anything. Well, it rocked on. My grandmother died in 1940. Well, everybody moved out of the house. Everybody was living in this 3-room house on Bastrop Street. 1519 Bastrop is what it was. I could always count to 20 because I was number 21 in the house, okay? When we moved out of that house, the house on Bastrop, we moved to the apartment at 1519 Nagel Street, right across the street from Schlumberger and W.D. Hayden's Sand and Gravel Company. When it rained in Houston, that old apartment building would just sway, you know, like this. And we would have to go 2 blocks down the street to my aunt's house. And today, when it rains, I stay at my house because I nearly drowned going to a safe place. So if it's raining, don't call me because I'm not coming to see you at all. No way, no way, no way. But getting back to my grandfather, we had some serious, serious habits. Every night around 12 o'clock midnight, my grandfather and I would get up, make a fire in the wood stove, wake up my grandmother so she could make cornbread, and we would go to the ice house, which is on the corner of Leland and Dowling. The place is still there now. We took our glass jug and we got it filled with buttermilk. We went back to the house. By the time we got back to the house with the buttermilk, everybody was up with their can or their jar with the cornbread crumbled in it and some sugar. And we ate buttermilk, cornbread, and sugar at night. Well, the next morning, my grandfather and I would go down on Dowling Street. We cleaned up Eureka Grill, which is still there on the corner of Leland and Dowling, red brick building. We cleaned up James Stewart's Cafe, and I was picking up pennies, it was a lot of money back then. And we went to Mr. Grader's store, which was on the corner of Pease and Dowling. And after that, I would go across the street and sit and talk with Mrs. Sagrader. Little did I know when I was 13 years old that I would be the recipient of a little Italian woman who was 81 years old, and I was a mad 13-year-old kid. Well, later on, in April of 1944, Mama had this cough. And we were learning at school about tuberculosis. So she said, Barbara, I've just got this bad cough one morning. I said, you just got TB? Barbara, don't say such awful things. You're always saying awful things. So I've always had hoof and mouth disease, okay? Whatever comes up, comes out. And I said, well, Mama, you don't have to go to the doctor. I'm telling you what you have. Well, she went to the doctor, went to the Jeff Davis Hospital. They hospitalized her. Little did I know that was going to be the last time I saw my mother before she died. Well, that evening when I got home from school, my brother called this lady the ugliest woman in the world. He said, sister, this is the ugliest woman in the world. She looks like a horse by the face. I said, don't say that about her. Well, she does, sis. And she told us that our mother said for me to take my little brother and take a few clothes in a bag and go to our Aunt Vi's house and tell Auntie Vi to keep us until she got out of the hospital. Well, everybody knew the girl was dying but us. Her children didn't know. My dad knew Mama was dying, and everybody in the family knew she was dying. So we went to this house, and we were so glad because we went, you know how Mexican Americans used to go to Mexico every weekend? Well, every other weekend we were in Louisiana, either on the train, the bus, or in my uncle's little green coupe. Well, I got to my aunt's house, had the shock of a lifetime. She said, I said, Aunt Vi, Mama said for you to keep us until she gets out of the hospital. She said, you can stay the night, but you have to be gone in the morning. But Aunt Vi, Mama said to keep us until she gets out of the hospital. I said, I have got CJ and Kirky to raise, and you have to be gone in the morning. My brother said, what are we going to do? I said, we're going back to that apartment house. We went back to that apartment house. At the time, I was 8 years old. He was 6. My life, as I knew it, being that happy kid, came to a screeching halt. But I know God was in the plan because every time my brother would ask me something, his first question, where are we going? What are we going to eat? Then where are we going to sleep? And I would say, oh Lord. That was my prayer, and that is still my prayer. Oh Lord. Because I found out that the people you think will, they won't. And I told my brother, I said, Mama was the kind of person, she was always sending us with care packages to people. And someone asked me one day, Barbara, where did you get this volunteer spirit from? And I had to think back. I thought it was my aunt, but I thought back, it was my mother. Mama was always making, she was a dressmaker. She was always making something for someone. Barbara was always carrying it to them. She'd cook a pot of beans and then she'd send the extra beans somewhere. My dad worked at the naval base, so every evening when he got home, I had my little croaker sack, they call them on burlap bags now. And here I go through the neighborhood taking things to different people. And I told him it was my mother. She had that, hey, let's share it. We don't need all of it. After we went back to the house, 2 days at the house, people in the neighborhood came in and they were just hauling Mama's clothes and the furniture out of the house and putting it on the fire, piled it up in the backyard. My dad was standing up there, he's like this. And I said, Abe, they're burning up Mama's, I told him the S word. And he just looked down at me. He never said a word. I said, they are burning up Mama's stuff. They put kerosene on it, lit it, gave me a shopping bag for me and a shopping bag for my brother. The only thing I can remember that was in that shopping bag was a red and yellow tube of Ipana toothpaste, and a toothbrush. And the other, panties and things like that, I vividly. We went on a trek, and by the time no one wanted us, and that's something that when you think about it, that you're 8 years old and nobody wants you, boy, that hit me like this. So I took the attitude, okay, Lord, And I would say, oh, Lord. And oh, Lord meant a lot of things to me. They moved us to Orange, Texas, because nobody in Houston wanted to be bothered with 2 children. That was a responsibility. That was cool. My aunt in Orange, Texas was a seamstress, and every Sunday, every weekend, I got 2 new dresses. So my grandfather had come for us, and I told I will come home next week because I wanted to make sure I got my 2 dresses for the weekend. Okay. It was very interesting because when we got back to Houston, the house that we'd been living in with my mother's sister, her husband didn't want us there anymore because my dad had not brought $2.50. This man worked at the meat packing company, and he brought meat home all of the time, but he wanted $2.50 for whatever, I don't know what it was for, don't care, didn't matter. We moved from there to a rooming house. And from that rooming house, at that rooming house, Mrs. Jackson, I had a lot of women in my village. Mrs. Jackson taught me a very valuable lesson. I told her, Miss Jackson, I had a fight today, and I beat Cokie up, and I rolled him over in a ditch of water, and he was all muddy. And I told him, tell your mama, and I'll whoop her too. You know how little kids get that? I'll whoop her too. Cokie's mama came out, and guess who ran? Barbara ran. When I got home, I told Miss Jackson about the fight. She said, well, what did he do to make you mad? He told me my mama's titty was going to rot off. She said, Barbara, your mama's titty is rotting off. And my fist ball up. She said, well, I guess you want to fight me. She said, Barbara, you remember last week when we called the dog pound because the dog was out there? And the dog, what was wrong with the dog? I said, it was stinking and rotten. She said, was it alive? I said, no, ma'am, it was dead. So I never fought anymore about that because this lady was very real with me. We moved on to the next place. We slept on the floor at Miss Patsy's house. That was interesting. And Miss Patsy, Mr. Berry didn't want us there, so we moved over to the house where the prostitutes were. We lived there for about 6 months. I learned a lot from the prostitutes. I found out what Barbara did not want to be, but they were very kind and caring to me. They saw that I was washed, my hair was combed, and I looked nice. But no man that came in that house with them touched me because they said she is off limits. So I slept in the head woman's on her couch. When her boyfriend would come, I would have to leave there. We left that house with the prostitutes, and I saw all these veterans come in and how far they went down from drinking and, drugging. And I knew what marijuana was when I was little, but we called them, they called them reefers back then. And the lady that lived next door to my aunt, Miss Jones, called it her asthma medicine. So I thought, okay. We moved from there to Fourth Ward, Texas, to Fourth Ward with an aunt. And have a little old story about the little old lady that slept with me. We had a little lady. My aunt took people in all the time. They were always opening the doors up for folk. You know how you like to go to fires? Well, we went to a fire down the street, only to turn around and look. There's a fire in our block. Guess whose house is on fire? Our house is on fire. Well, we got our fire out, so the fire was right over, burned the hole right over my bed. That was the first time I had a bed by myself. Then came Miss Mariah. This little old lady had fingernails that were hard as I don't know what. She pinched me every night because she wanted the bed by herself. So I told my brother, I said, I'm going to pinch Miss Mariah and I'm going to wring a knot in her skin. I learned to tuck under on my side. So I would, when she would get me to roll out of bed, I wouldn't fall out of the bed. So she told my aunt, Liza, that girl pinched the blood out of me. My aunt said, did you pinch her? I said, yes, ma'am. Why did you pinch her? I said, she was pinching me every night so I would move over. I said, and I fell out of the bed. So I decided I was going to pinch her real good. And I did pinch her old skin and I twisted it. Well, that was the end of that. I was working at that time around the corner at the store babysitting three little kids who were going to Sacred Heart Catholic School. And that's when I learned all about the Hail Marys and taught them their catechism stuff for school. Their dad was Italian and their mother was Bohemian. I made 50 cents every day, and 25 cents went to my daddy. 15 cents went to Barbara, and 10 cents went to my brother. Because eventually we moved back to Third Ward, and guess what? I had to get back and forth to school. Well, by this time we had moved in with my uncle, and my uncle and my aunt. And this was the time my dad was hard on you if you lied. He was drinking his sweetheart sherry wine, and my grandfather said, Abe, are you drinking again? No, Daddy, I'm not drinking. I said, yes, he is. I said, that bottle of sweetheart sherry wine is right there by his chair. My daddy got up, slapped me, and my head jerked. And I thought about you. I told him, I said, the Bible said to turn the other cheek. I said, now I'm turning the other cheek. If you ever slap me again, I will kill you. Your dad and your brother will know where you are. I was 12 at the time. I was this size. I've been this size since third grade. Biggest thing in third grade, have not grown an inch. Just I did this way and this way. I told my dad, I said, you are not going to do to me what you did to my mother. My mother's dad was a European man, and my grandmother looked just like me. You'll see her over here. Mama wore more steaks on her eyes than she put in her stomach. And I made it up in my mind from that moment at age 12. The people I saw doing things had an education. They were the teachers. They were the people who said, if you do this, you can do this. Well, by the time I got all this stuff together, I was 12 years old, and they moved me to my aunt's house at 2118 Sawyer Street. I had been there before. She kicked us out because she didn't want her grandchildren to get TV, because our mother had died with tuberculosis and she didn't want her grandchildren to get TB. Well, I was there 11 years. And my aunt sent me to her best friend, that little old lady, Miss Segreter, that I had met when I was 3 years old. I learned from Miss Segreter that love comes in people. It's not racist, it's not color, but in people. I went to her house every day. I was in 6th grade and on to the 7th grade. I went to her house every evening. I finally had me somebody that I could talk to that was mine. She replaced something that I had missed, that I was missing. And we cleaned the same thing every day. Every day we cleaned she didn't live on a dirt road, but we cleaned it every day. And I found out where she was using her white pocket handkerchief, so that's where I cleaned. We baked the chicken every day, the same way. She said we were baking the chicken for Johnny. Her son, they had a liquor store. Well, it just so happened I was 3rd generation working for Mr. Grader. My grandfather's sister, who was a school mom during slavery, taught Mr. Grader to read, write, and speak English. Well, Mr. Grader taught me to enjoy people and to take people one at a time. And that's what I learned from her. One evening I got there and I said, girl, we'd gotten to be girlfriends. We talked girlfriends. I said, girl, you haven't opened the door. What is wrong with you? And she said, baby, and fell. She'd had a stroke. And she never told her son. She was waiting for me all day long to walk over there. Well, I saw my friend and my mentor lying in bed, and she kept calling, baby, baby. So they brought all of her grandchildren and her children and her great-grandchildren in. She told them no, no. And they said, Barbara, who is the baby? I am the baby. I am. I went to her bedside, and she caught my hand, and she just looked me in the eye. She said, baby, baby, baby. And I knew what she meant. Don't give anybody any static, because I had a flip little lip. She had a fig tree in the backyard, and every day she wanted me to pick the figs. I said, I am not picking figs. And I do like this, because those leaves itch me. One day I got there. She was standing by the fence, and she said, lock the gate, and she said, baby, pickety figs. She gave me a long sleeve white shirt. I learned from her, there's always another way to do it. Don't get stuck in the rut. Find the other way. Okay? Now, from that story, the people in the neighborhood put their arms around me when they found out that I was serious about school. When we came from Louisiana burying my mother, I know I'm bird walking, but I'm putting it all together. We got to Douglas Elementary School. There was a woman there named Mrs. Huckabee and another one named Mrs. Woodruff. Mrs. Huckabee was the fine arts teacher. And she said, Barbara Jean Baldwin, you sure have a nice sounding voice. I want you to sing in the Glee Club. I said, can you get a white blouse and a blue skirt? I'm thinking, here this woman talking about, can I get a white blouse and a blue skirt? I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight, because I can't go back to where I was last night. I've got to look for a place to sleep. Well, I told the story in the neighborhood. And guess what? I got a navy blue skirt and a white blouse. And I was in the Glee Club. Well, Miss Huckabee never left me alone. Every time I saw her coming, I thought, here come that so-and-so again. She just gets on my so-and-so nerve. Remember, I'm a street kid, living on the streets of Houston, living by your wits. And this woman will not leave me alone. Miss Huckabee, before I knew it, I was learning to do calisthenics. I was learning to do ballet. All of this stuff because of that teacher. That teacher stayed on my case. She followed me all the way through high school, ladies and gentlemen. She sold me to her best friend, who was the choir teacher at Jack Yates, Miss Hazel Lewis, whose hair was like somebody's. She stuck her fingers in a light socket like this. She said, you have a nice voice, and I understand you can sing. I want you in the a cappella choir. So you know what I said? Miss Huckabee, you still getting on my so-and-so nerves. But all of that, when I looked up, here I am graduating from high school, and the most likely person not to graduate from high school because everybody said you got 3 strikes against you. But I was still saying, oh Lord, okay? Had one lady in the neighborhood who was a seamstress, a professional seamstress. She would say, black girl, come by here and bring me 50 cents. I would go by and take her 50 cents, and she would give me a whole brand new outfit that she had made. It was years before I knew what store-bought clothes were all about, because this lady, when she had remnants left, she figured out how to make me a vest and a skirt. And she would say, now, you know, you have to look good. You have to look real good. At this time, I was working for Alabama Catering Service. And I had a Jewish woman in my life whose family owned the kosher meat company in Chicago. She was very rich, millionaire girl. Her husband was an Auschwitz survivor. He had the numbers on his arms. And he would say, Barbara, you don't appreciate anything. I said, I just want a sandwich. Get some of that rye bread and eat it, and some horseradish. Raw horseradish, y'all. Raw horseradish. And hard rye bread and Limburger cheese. Hey, I learned to love it. I learned to love it. Those people taught me to love people just like they were. One night, we were doing the Rivos Country Club, Rivos Lions Club, and this man came in. He said, hey, gal, do you know how to count? I'm 15 at the time. And he called me gal. What that meant, he was supposed to get cussed out. Miss Rubin said, Barbara. I said, yes, sir, I can. Well, sell these so-and-so El Trellis cigars and have my money when I get back. When he got back, I sold all of his El Trellis cigars for 75 cents a piece, had his money there and his cigars. Keep that so-and-so money. I don't need it. Well, you know I got to know his name. Every month he came, it was the same thing. I said, hello, Mr. So-and-so, how are you doing? He said, hey, Bob Jane, how you doing? I said, same thing. He said, same thing. I'd sell the whole box of cigars. Miss Rubin said, Barbara, that's what I was talking about. If you're going to be quick at the lip and you're going to always bless people out, where are you going to go in this world? You hold your tongue. Hold your tongue. So I learned to hold my tongue when there were times when people were ticking me off and I wanted to say something. I went on through and I left Alabama Catering Service and went to work for European Import. I met this Australian woman who had a Spanish husband, best looking man I've ever seen in my life. Wanted me to pose nude for him. He was a professional artist. And I said, no, I won't do that. But his wife was beautiful. I mean, just beautiful. They kept me working. They found out I was in high school and trying to get through high school, so they always had me to come and polish silver for them. Then I met this man, Mr. Grossman, who had every bureau, the smart shop, Craig and Pally Royal in Houston. I worked for him. I had a cousin who said, baby, don't work for the non-coms, always work for the head man. So I worked for Mr. Grossman. Mr. Grossman had me, I was in shipping and receiving. That is, Mr. Grossman taught me something. I don't buy anything full price. We bought things at unit prices. We would get $1.50, and then he would have me to mark them up to $150. I said, well, Mr. Grossman, Barbara, do what I asked you to do. Again, I learned to do and follow directions because the rest of it was not my business. So that was fun. I graduated from high school and was sitting on a rock trying to figure out how I was going to go that second semester. Because the first semester, all the money that people had given me, $50 was a whole lot of money in 1954. It paid your first semester's tuition. Well, I need $25 for the next one. I had all of the money but $9. Well, my little brother, the professional musician, and his little sisters washed enough bottles at $2 a piece to get me $10. And he is the apple of my eye. I love him to pieces. And it's just, family working together. I sat on the rock crying, and his mother said to me, get your so-and-so off that so-and-so rock. And you are not going to be able to see anything sitting on that rock and crying. While you're crying, your blessings are passing you by. She did not lie. My cousin the next day said, Barbara, I want you to keep a job for me. I'm not ready to go to work. It was at Nielsen's Delicatessen out on Drexel Street. When I got there to that job, the Nielsens, Fru Nellie, and her husband would ask me every day, I was in college, are you going to finish college? And I'm saying, I'm in college. Yes, I'm going to finish college. Yes, I'm going to finish. Well, it rocked on. July 17th, 1959, before I graduated from college, I signed a contract. Did everything by phone. That's why I don't do anything by phone. I want to see your face. I had not been to West Texas, had never been away from any place that I call home. And Fru Nellie was going through the Highland Village. My black baby finished college. Those two blondes I had didn't finish anything. They ended up fixing hair. But my black baby, she went to every place. That was so fantastic to have a mama like that. She and her husband, I learned from them to get serious about work. I only worked on Tuesday evening, Thursday evening, Saturday and Sunday. And some Tuesday and Thursday, I would slough off. I was on the bus one night, one evening going to school, going to work, one Saturday morning. And these women got on the bus. They said, girl, I work 7 days a week and I get $35 a week. And I wash, I iron, I cook, I clean, and I take care of children. And I thought, here you are. You go to work when you please, you work Saturday and Sunday, and you goof off. I heard those women saying that, and let me tell you what, it's been business ever since. Business. I learned that you put in and you get out. I caught that bus coming here. I had a Foot Locker, 2 boxes, my purse, and $15 in my pocket. I'm so glad I caught that bus at night because I slept from Houston to Dallas and really woke up in Abilene. The bus stopped in Stanton at that little storefront on Highway 80. And I said to myself, I have died and gone straight to. If Midland is not the next stop, it is my last stop. The man got on the bus and closed the door. Midland, next stop. It came farther into Midland, and I thought, blank, what have I gotten myself into? I called my aunt and I told her, you've got to let me come home. I said, you don't know what I see. I said, I saw big old rats running around in the ditch, in the place they call the flat. I said, there are no trees, there is nothing. My aunt said, keep your so-and-so out there and make back some of that so-and-so money. I said, yes, ma'am. It rained. I called her. I said, I saw the lightning hit the ground. You've got to let me come home. She said, didn't you understand what I said? My aunt hit me about right here. Didn't you understand what I said? I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, they had a football game, and I called home because, you had to call to get permission to spend the money. At least I did. I said, we're going to a football game, and it's in Lubbock, and it's cold up there, and I need some clothes to wear. She said, well, how much is it going to cost? I'd gone to S&Q's, and I'd spied something. This jacket. A Pendleton. She said, you can buy it if it's going to last a lifetime. Well, this coming September, I will have it 60 years. I still have one of the skirts, but you know what, I think the skirts, I probably can have to put a rubber band to pull it together. But I got hooked up with some kids at Carver, Joan Love Davis, Ferris Lee Stramber. Well, I'm 24 years old, and here's a 14-year-old girl asking me, will you sponsor a girls' club? And I said, girl, me? You talking to me? She said, yes, ma'am. I said, how old are you guys? The oldest person was in there was 18. I said, oh, no, honey, can't do that. We'll be chasing the same folk. We'll be looking at the same men, so I'm not going to do that. That passed. They came back the next week. The band needed a chaperone. We were going to Lubbock. And they said, we need a chaperone on the senior bus. I said, why do we want you to ride that senior bus? Well, I bought this suit. I caught that ride on the band bus, and I rode that band bus 7 years and 6 weeks. The 6 weeks I was pregnant with that young man back there, and I couldn't ride it anymore. Ferris Strambler said to me, you need to be, in the spring of that year, I want you to come and root for me at the game, at track meet. He said, because my mom was going to be at home with all them children. I know you don't have a husband, you ain't got no boyfriend, you ain't got no this, you ain't got no that. Your students know more about your business than you do. Sure enough, I didn't have any of that, and I had to get a ride, so I came in on the east side. By the time I got to the east side, he was running and looking. He saw me, and he was running third leg. He was called the wheel horse. Those two young people, they didn't ask me, they told me what I needed to do. And I've been told ever since. And I want to tell you something. I wish for every teacher, that they could have the experiences that I've had. Or when I came out here, I met with some stuff with the professional folk. And I had a lady who talked about nigger this, nigger that, and aunt your mama this and aunt your mama that. And I called my aunt. and I told her about it. She said, "You've heard worse than that from your folk." She said, "Remember what I said? Let me reiterate." I said, "I understand. Keep my so-and-so out there and make back some of that money." Before that particular teacher died, she and I would sit in her yard and drink tea. She said, come by, girl, because I want you, let's sit and drink tea." She said, "I didn't know you, and I'm apologizing because," she said, "I will never teach any so-and-sos." And they moved, when they opened Lee, she went to Lee High School. Well, she was still my department here because I was the high school art teacher at Carver. And I learned from her, don't always beat a person down because they say something to you. They don't know you. They don't know you. Once they get to know you, and I never shall forget what my uncle said to me. He said, he walked up to me, "Come here, sir. You ain't better than nobody, and ain't nobody better than you. And always remember that a bird flies high, but he's got to come back down to the ground to get a drink of water." And my uncle turned around. He said, "I want you to remember that," because I was having telling him things that I had encountered, and he said that to me, and that is so true. You are not better than anybody. He told me that for me to remember that I'm not better than anybody. Don't you put yourself up so high that you can't be touched. I got to South Elementary School in 1975, the art teacher. And I thought, Lord, you know I don't want to be over here. Then I got the Fannin kids. Lord, you know I sure don't want to be over here with all these little white kids. I want to be back over there with the black kids at Pease Elementary School. And I told my two sisters, my two god sisters, to stand. God didn't bless me with blood sisters. I just had a brother. But when I got to Midland, I met Bertha Littlejohn, Patricia Hamola, Wendy Crowder. They have never asked me why. They don't know when. When. And it's been a wonderful journey because when I taught at South and I'm walking around in the classroom having this pity party, and I said, Lord, you know I don't want to be here. And y'all, I promise you, 109 at South Elementary School is haunted. Everyone who teaches in that classroom, they come back and say, do you know there's a spirit walking around? I said, yeah, I know. Yeah, I saw him. Because when I said, I don't want to be here with these little white kids, I want to be at peace with the black kids. Why me, Lord? He said, why not you? I told you, you are to teach people. You have been sent to work with my people. I shut my mouth up and I rolled up my sleeves. I would stand on the desk and talk more noise to them. I stand up and listen. Melissa's back there shaking her head. I have Heather here, and I saw that other Melissa come in. That first group from the cluster system busted me. They busted me wide open the last day of school. This is what they gave me. I sat and I cried. When they named the school, I pulled out the T-shirt and I said, I call them turkeys. I said, you turkeys got it. And the school is not a tribute to me. It's a tribute to all of my former students and their parents. When I came to this church, Gene McCain met me. He said, hey, Barbara, remember when we were in Galveston, Texas, we got locked in? We were at Texas classroom teachers meeting. We got locked in. You couldn't go to the bathroom. You couldn't go any place. You had to make sure you didn't drink any liquids. He said, come to my class. When I got to the class, I saw Carrie Kay there. Well, I had taught her. I saw the Pardoos there. I had taught their son. And I thought, and then I saw Melissa Harold. I saw different kids, different people, different. And I thought, okay, Lord, it is a ministry. And I'm afraid not to do as he directs. Because I heard a song and it says, where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. I'll go with him all the way. I am still following. I'm on a journey. I was such a terrible reader. I have to go back and talk about this little picture. My grandfather's sister, who was the house slave, took me one night and she said, you don't sound like you're talking. And reading, you're supposed to be talking for someone else. That little lady, I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning before I went to bed, and I had to be up at 7 so I could catch the bus to go across town. So that's what this picture talks about. My Sunday school class, see, sis, we talked about church. This picture is one of those pictures, after church on Sunday evening. Well, by this time I was working. I had a job working. This picture will show you how the family gathered on Sunday afternoon. This picture, our children laugh about because they want to know, why aren't you guys smiling? I looked at it, I never thought about it. My aunt had said to me, the man is coming, the photographer is coming to take pictures. You get those kids ready to take pictures. So I had to get all of them ready and get me ready. And I'm standing at the back. I'm holding the youngest. And she brought a picture when her daughter, this is the youngest at the time, there were 7 others born after this. We had one in the oven. He was born that year, 1948. This young woman, when her daughter got her doctorate degree in pharmacy, she brought me a picture. She said, I want to say thank you because you were my big sister. These are not my sisters and brothers. This is my brother. We ended up in a family where the oldest kid was the boss. So if I'm a little bossy, don't worry about it. I've had plenty of practice. There were 15 of us all together. And when I go home now, they want to know how long is she going to be here. They used to say when I was younger, who did something and who called her. So, and we have them from doctors to the drug dealers to the prostitutes. We've got them all. We have all of them. And God blessed me with a beautiful man in my life 51 years ago. He'll be 52 next week. And it's been a joy and a pleasure that I've got so many kids. I see my Chris back there. I see my Melissa. And I just look out and I see my Heather. It's something when families and parents trust you with their most prized possession, those their children. And I take it serious. I still take it serious. And I really don't care what you think, because if you send them to the place where I am, I promise you. The kids call me the Black Bee. And I told them, I said, have you ever seen a mama dog with her puppies? How does she act? I said, I consider it an honor and a pleasure that you call me that. I said, because that is a protector. I want to thank you for listening. And I didn't tell it all. Thank you so very much. She told me to leave time for questions. Questions. Well, I met this young man who had just mustered out of the service. His mother and I attended the same church, Hollowell, and that's how I met him. Mhm. Yes. She had tuberculosis, TB. She had a lung disease. Hmm. Yeah. No. She would cough and just stuff would come up. And I pray and I gave thanks to the nurse who held the little handkerchief out and waved at us on Sunday afternoon because when I saw my mother, she couldn't stand. A nurse waved it, and that gave us an awful lot of hope. Yes, yes. She was a junior when I was a freshman. At Texas Southern University. She was in the law department. I was in the art department. Yes. There is nothing that you can't do. You have to sacrifice. You can't do all of the things that your friends are doing. You have to decide what it is that you want to do because your friends will roll on you. They're not going to be there. And you have to catch on, hold on, hang on tight, and decide where you're going, not your friends, but where are you going? What do you want to do in this life? My aunt said something to me. She said it every day. I called her the third grader where I live. Every day, my aunt, we woke up, my aunt said, when you graduate from college, you were going to be able to do this and you're going to be able to do that. She'd only been to the third grade because her mother had taken her out of school to raise her children. Third grade. She said, I haven't been to school for me since I was in the third grade. But I tell you what, she walked to Jack Yates High School. She walked 12 blocks to Jack Yates High School on a cane. I was in the ninth grade, and they said, Barbara Jean Bolden, come to the office. Your aunt is here. Trying to figure out what I'd done. You know what she did? You know what that was all about? She said, I wanted to prove to you that I could come to this school. Don't have them to call me about anything. No, no, no. No phone calls. None. None. War. Come on, ask. Hmm. My grandpa. My grandpa let me know there was nothing that I couldn't do because he taught me to shoe horses. He taught me to make horseshoes, to repair wagon wheels. He taught me how to greet people. My job was to greet people. And I love greeting people right now. He taught me to greet them, and it would say, how are you doing, sir? What do you want done to your wagon? And I was a little girl, 3 or 4 years old. And if I didn't say that, my grandfather was chewing me out. You didn't say what I told you to say. And the reason he was this way, his sisters always taught him that Buddy Abe was an educated black man, and he had his own business. He was never a slave. I'm third generation out of slavery, and my aunts always said you have to have an education to live in this world. Yes. I am retired. I am retired. I'm doing what I enjoy doing. People say, I thought you were retired. I am retired. I go because I want to. I go because I want to, and I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And when I get tired of, hey, they said, oh, Barbara stuff. Don't call me. And they don't call. But I am retired. I sub and, professional busybody. I told a lady, asked me something. She said, Barbara, I've got something for you to do. I said, I don't want to do it. She said, what? You don't? I said, I don't want to do that. She was shocked. And there are some times that I will say no. No is a good word. I love the 23rd Psalm. My aunt had us to say, it wasn't the Lord's Prayer, it was the 23rd Psalm, because he said, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul. I don't know what he does to yours, but I know what he does for mine. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He anointeth my head with oil. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord. And that sticks with me. And the other one, when I found out that he was really real and he took nasty little old Barbara, I was reading the 15th chapter of John, which I have seldom heard. And it talked about the vine keeper, how the vine keeper goes through and he washes and he prunes and puts them back up in place. And I thought, Lord, you put me back in place. You found something that I could do. And you counted me worthy. You counted me truly worthy. Yes. Yes. I guess he was working on me all the time and I just didn't know it. Because a lot of times I wanted to cuss folk out and it wouldn't come out. A whole lot of times it came out. You, hey, you better believe it. It would come out, and I kept a knife, and I would tell them, cut your throat from one ear to the other. Keep on messing with me. And I walked around with razor blades in between my fingers and on my right hand. So if someone said something to me, I never had to do it, but I was gonna slap them silly and slap them and cut them off, just because it was about protecting yourself during that time. You had to be able to protect yourself because I found out that I was a loner. And it's all, but I was a loner, but I was never alone because the other thing, he promised never to leave me. I might have walked away from him and stepped 2 steps away, but he was always with me. And that's when I realized, you know what? This is pretty cool. You had Bash. Oh, okay. But it's been a journey, and I found out that it's a ministry. And I told someone I don't have to go to Mexico. I don't have to go to Africa. I don't have to go to any of those foreign countries. I have all the foreign countries right around me. And thank you, Lord. And thank you for letting me speak to you tonight.
Well, I don't know if y'all heard my sermon this morning, but Barbara is a living example of what a faithful witness for Jesus is. And Barbara, we will always be grateful that God has put you in our life. I will be always grateful for the ways in which that He has always been at work in your life and how you've been able to articulate it in such a vulnerable way. We're going to be changed tonight because of what we heard. And we will be inspired to not be defined by our circumstances, right? I talk a lot about that, right? But you do it better than I do. And so, and also one more thing I wanted to say is, man, you bleep your own talks better than anybody I know. Kids in the room, and you do such a good job. So let's pray together. God, how you take us, how you place people in our paths to be a means of grace, to lift us up out of the ashes. We are so grateful. We are grateful for Barbara and her faithful witness to us and to our community. Wow, Midland is radically different because of her. Our church is, and the kingdom of God is. And so, Lord, continue to pour your blessings out upon Barbara. Thank you for all the ways that she has prayed, oh Lord, and you have answered. And may we cry out to you, oh Lord, and watch you do your work in our lives as well. In Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen. Y'all come up and look at all of Barbara's stuff. Thank y'all for coming tonight.